Stephen Squibbs presents this month's board certification tip.
All right, now we have our next guest, Brittany Pinson out of Tampa, and she works with the Sessoms Law Group. Brittany, you there?
I am.
Congratulations. And not only did Brittany just pass the exam, but she passed it as quickly as an attorney could possibly pass this test, because you got to be an attorney for 5 years. You have to have so many trials. And Brittany got it on her 6th year, which is literally as quickly as you go. So Brittany, you are in a very, not only are you board certified and got this awesome recognition, but only a few people have done it as quickly as you have. So congratulations.
Thanks. I saw no reason to wait, and I was thrilled I passed the first time.
And it's nice to just get that out of the way. So we're going to talk about like how you approach studying, and I bet there were some things that you did that are probably not like the normal, because you rocketed to the front of the line. So how'd you approach this, Brittany?
So I thought pretty hard about, back when I was in law school, what worked for me. How do I learn best? It's an extraordinary amount of information that you have to retain. So I kind of broke it down into 2 ways, if you will. First, in law school, I hand wrote all of my notes. I did not type them. So I thought, why change what works? And so I made a very long outline based on the Cert review books that you get at the January course. And I hand wrote that the entire thing. So that was how I started. I just went topic by topic. I also got the books from 2022 and 2021 when I was doing this, because 2023 wasn't out yet. I actually started in June of 2021 or 2022. So I was actually filling out my application and making edits to it and already starting to study. I didn't submit my application until late August. I was waiting on a couple of final judgments. Actually, I had to reshift what were substantial involvement cases.
B1.
Yes, exactly. Move that around, update the summary. So that was a lot of fun. But I started with both of those books because I noticed that some of the authors were the same, but some were different. And so they approached a topic differently. And so I wanted to make sure I incorporated, 1, all of the information, and 2, sometimes one approach resonated better with me. And so I, looked at both books simultaneously while I was going through making this handwritten outline. I had a big spiral notebook that was 199 pages. And I also had one of the books from, I think it was 2020, when the course did only published materials on annulment, cohabitation, some of these smaller topics that they never present on. And so I made sure that I also included those, because they were listed as testable topics, but not something that were in the 2 books I actually looked at when I was doing the outline. So I also had that book separately. We have all of the books in my firm. We get those every year. So that was really valuable to have. Once I got through the written portion, then I switched to typing, and I retyped the whole thing, but this time I put it in my own words instead of just the words I had written out of the actual outline. And I thought that that was helpful, because I was typing it, then I was able to move things around, streamline what I was writing, and that resulted in an 89-page typed outline. I did not double space. I tried to use bullet points a lot, but I wrote a lot of things out. And then that got me through, I would say, November-ish, December. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't burnt out, that I wasn't coming up against holidays, and I knew that I would need to cram a lot of information in a short time, because doing this process really helped me synthesize it and internalize it. But I knew I wasn't ready to take the test at that point, because it was just too much information sort of scattered out there. So then in January of 2023, I started doing what I call one sheets, and trying to get every topic that was in my outline. I think I had 23 different topics down to just one sheet. So that meant, don't write it down if you know it by heart. If you don't know it by heart and it's something that's nuanced, write it down. But be careful and strategic about what you're doing. So then that was how I was spending my time. And then I got to the point where I was just reviewing the one sheets. Prior to the test, I spent an entire weekend rereading very slowly the whole original outline, but also noticing that there had been changes in the law. There had been some updates. And so I also had to say, oh, that's not right. And I was happy that I could pick out that kind of information from even reading my outline from just 6 months ago. And then the day before the test, I actually had a hearing that morning. And then that afternoon, I read fairly quickly through the outline one last time as just, let me make sure I know this, because I would never forgive myself if I just couldn't recall this one little thing. But I did not take any time off for the test other than basically taking the test.
Any chance you know how many hours were devoted to this process?
They asked that in a survey after the test, and the options were like between 50 and 100, 100 to 150, 150 or more. I would say I was spending, when I was doing the actual outline part, about 2.5 to 3 hours every night. And I would do it a couple nights a week based around work schedule and things like that. No weekends at that point. I mean, but over time, I think I would have to say it's at least 100, maybe even more than 150, but I'm just not sure because I had spread it out so much intentionally. But then there was just a lot of time spent, at those last 2 months. It was an extraordinary amount of time after work and on weekends, just making sure that I had every detail nailed down.
So that seems pretty exhaustive. When you took the test, did you feel good about it, or were you freaked out? What was going through your head?
So my initial reaction was I killed it and I would be shocked if I didn't pass. As time passed, and I mean, even just a few days, that faded and I became very paranoid and afraid. I actually woke up one morning and thought, oh my gosh, I didn't write about this on exam 2. I can't believe that. And then I had to rethink about, what did I write? Oh no, I wrote that. Okay, we're good. So I had a couple even freak out moments. And then even once we got into May, you start knowing it's coming, the decision, what happened. The closer it got, the more nervous I got. And I tried to tell myself to hold on to that feeling from March 10th of I killed it, but it was just really hard. So when I read the email that I passed, in the middle of the day on May 31st, I started yelling in my office and like jumping up and running around. So
we talked to one person and the email went to his junk folder.
oh no.
So he was looking and discovered it that way. How did you what were you doing when you found out?
Well, so I actually had heard through the grapevine from somebody else in the beginning of May when I was at the AML conference in Orlando that the way they tell you is if you pass, you get your certificate. If you fail, you get a regular letter. And I had previously joked that I wondered if it was going to be like college admissions where you got a big envelope or small envelope. So I was horrified to find out I was actually correct in my joke. So all this time, as it gets closer and closer, every day I'm saying, guys, has the mail come? Guys, has the mail come? No, it hasn't come, right? So then, okay, someone told me it was going to be towards the end of the May. It was taking them longer to grade, but I still think the mail is coming. So May 29th was a Memorial Day holiday. So I come into the office on Tuesday. For sure, I'm going to find out that day. Nothing comes. So then now it's Wednesday, May 31st. I'm actually in a different office than is the address listed on my bar application stuff because we have multiple offices at the firm. So I'd gotten out of the phone console. I was about to go to a hearing and I start scrolling upward through my email. And so I see certification exam passed, the Florida bar. And so I went and clicked on it, but I wasn't expecting it by email. So I still didn't really know what it was, except for I thought I knew what it was. So it was one of those sort of reality versus understanding what you're really seeing.
And how often do you get that kind of adrenaline rush where you learn something so important and something that took so much work to accomplish?
I mean, it does remind me of when I was waiting to see if I passed the bar to even become an attorney, right? Because we had to log on to the Florida Supreme Court website and you were scrolling for your name and looking for pass, or hoping there was no fail in there. So that was another one. I felt really good about that exam. And when I saw the results, it had been so long. I, again, was jumping up and, screaming, running around the offius because I was
Have that
of course
feeling,
at work
yeah.
at that point. So it was really just incredible.
The fire in the belly. How would you compare this to the Florida bar exam?
Harder in the sense of there weren't that many multiple choice. We only had 30 total and they were only 1 point each. And so that made up a very small percentage of your score. And I thought the multiple choice were challenging, but covered a large variety of topics. So I thought that, it really made it worth it that I studied all 23 topics. The rest of the exam we had 25 short answers, which you don't have on the underlying bar part. I thought those were definitely the hardest. Time constraint, you couldn't go reread things as much. You really had to go more off instinct and just know it right then. And those were 2 points each, so 50 points. So it was obviously more than the multiple choice, and that was more than one essay because each of the essays we had were only 30 points each. And we had 5 of those.
Or
And
substantive
so,
essays in the ethics essay, right?
yes. And so that was having to write that many essays also was different. I think the bar exam only had 3 essays. And they didn't seem to be on as many topics. It seemed like a singular topic, whereas these essays, I mean, they had focuses, but like essay 2 was, I think they just called it jurisdiction and substantive issues, but it was a fun one with all sort of topics. I would call it potpourri. And the other ones seemed to have, overarching themes, but there was really a lot that you could grasp at. So I thought that that was definitely a different, more nuanced approach. But I think it makes sense for what we're testing for versus what you're testing for in the underlying bar exam.
Now that you've passed and you kind of see the other side of the curtain, is there anything you would do differently?
No, and to be honest, when it was getting closer and I was getting worried that I had failed, I literally thought to myself, I do not know what I would do different. And I'm terrified that I might have to do all of this again. My approach from the beginning was do it once, do it right. It's gonna suck, just to be honest, spending hours after work, you work all day, doing that, spending time on the weekends as you get closer to the exam sucks. It just does. But I really told myself, embrace it now and hope that it's worth it. So I can't think of anything else I would have done different.
You work with Mark Sessoms, and he's a big board cert guy. He's, in fact, I think the only attorney I know who's double certified, at least the only attorney I've spoken to and conversed with. How was the firm with you, coming from that type of a firm that really champions this process? Did that help?
So since I met Mark back in 2012, we've been working together in different capacities. Prior to me being admitted to practice law in Florida in 2016. And so he was always board certified since I knew him. He always had sort of this striving for excellence. And I felt like I've always been that type of person as well. So I think from very early on, I knew I was going to pursue board certification. And so I knew that a lot of hard things came with that, but that ultimately I thought that it was a rewarding goal. I also only really want to take family law cases. And so I thought that that also made sense to be able to distinguish myself in that way with clients or potential clients. So to me, it was always something I was going to pursue. And I had shared that with Mark before. So we were in a way counting down to when could I actually apply to even sit for the exam. And he helped me look over my application after I had done all of the written parts of it back in August of 2022. And we sent that off, and he was really supportive. He did tell me he never took any time off when he took the board certification exam. And so I did feel a little pressure to do the same, even though everybody pretty much at the TIPS meeting in January 2023 said they took at least a week. Some people took way more time than that. And I was just powering through. So he kind of was somebody I was trying to emulate in how he did things, because I know I don't have children, but he had 2 small children when he was trying to take the test, and he had to work, a full-time job, and he didn't even take time off. So I thought, I can do the same thing. I'll see you and raise you on. So he was, very supportive. We went to lunch actually the day after the test, after I took the test, and he was, really interested to hear the stories and just overall supportive. And then he was obviously somebody I shared this with immediately, and he was, so happy for me. Just, you could tell the way he was even talking, he was glowing about it. So to have that pride, not just in the firm, but in me personally, and one of those, we knew you could do it. I heard that a lot. That also made me worried when I failed that, well, what are they going to say now? But fortunately, we don't have to cross that bridge.
Well, I mean, whether you pass or not, this process makes you a better attorney. So
Absolutely.
So congratulations. Tell Mark we said hi. He's an awesome dude. Any other tips you want to share with our listeners, Brittany, before before we end this segment?
Um,
Things that
one,
you might
yeah, so
benefit?
one thing that I thought was really helpful, I took it on the virtual platform. They started that after COVID, actually. So I was able to I actually took it in this actual office. And you have to download a software program. They walk you through all of this stuff, and then you upload the exams. Prior to this, they tell you it's required to do a mock exam. It's, I guess, a board certification exam on a part of it on on a completely separate topic. It's not about getting the questions right or wondering what the actual answer is or anything like that, but you are able to go through and figure out all of the features with the program, that then helps you have that sense of familiarity. So once you actually get into each of the exam sections, because it's in 4 separate exam section parts that they release access to at designated times on test day, you can jump right into what's the question, let me find my answer, instead of wondering what this button does, or trying to do something the long way when there might be a shortcut to being able to do it. So playing around with the different features, familiarizing yourself with the program, it's kind of like being on autopilot when you're driving a car on a route you've known the whole time. So it's just one less thing to think about, and it lets you focus, I think, on all the information that you're dying to tell the grader because you definitely studied your butt off and are ready to kill the exam.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Congratulations on this epic career achievement. We're all very proud of you, and we can't wait to see what you do with this.
Great, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brittany Pinson.
Good luck.
That brings us to the conclusion of this quarter's episode of Stevens & Stevens Family Law CLE. Remember, all proceeds from this project benefit the Center for Child Counseling. We truly appreciate your support. We will see you next quarter. Till then, do something that matters.